Second quarter about to start between the Liberty and the Aces. 23-13 in favor of the home side, in favor of the New York Liberty. Kajan Theory Thanny Castle, of course, alongside myself, Spencer Byers. And Cage, you got to start wondering, is this game not necessarily over already, but I mean, it's definitely getting that feeling for me, Cage, that this game is getting out of reach a little too early.
It has been, but it also starts on the defensive side of the floor. And Becky Edmondson, they played crappy, but they're only down 10.
Now, I'm gonna make sure I say this again, Cajun. I cannot stress this enough. I think you know where I'm going with this. I cannot stress this enough. I hate interviewing the coaches during the game.
Yeah.
It's stupid. It's only gonna get you in trouble because I guarantee you the coaches now have to be mindful of what they're saying, not cuss, because Cajun, we can also be honest here, most coaches cuss. Not all, but most, especially at the professional level. So I really don't like it. I think, again, cool concept, but I don't like it. There's going to be a charge call against Young and a down Liberty player as we're, again, started the second quarter about 30 seconds into the second quarter. And it's Vandersloot who's down. I saw her kind of grimace when she got up for and one. And she got it there from a little tap by Young, who tried to give a screen, technically. And that's, again, another turnover for the Aces. That's number 9. They're already almost at double digits, Cage. And we still have basically 30 minutes of play. That is a great pass by Johannes to Jonquil Jones, but she couldn't cash the check.
Oh my goodness. Oh my Lord. Great move there by Plum.
But Jonquil Jones said, get that garbage out of here.
Get that garbage out of here.
I knew you'd do it, Cage. And I knew you'd do it so I wouldn't have to.
In the words of the great Jack Armstrong, get that garbage out of here.
That's a great block by Jonquil Jones, might I add.
Great and disrespectful. And smacked that down and walked away.
And not that I would poke away there by Aja Wilson. So 10 seconds now on the shot clock for the Liberty. Neither team have scored just yet, but again, it's still important to mention that even with that, the Aces need to get some sort of way back in this, I think.
Mm-hmm. And that's a big and one there from Asia Wilson, taking matters into her own hands and finishing over Jonquil Jones, putting a foul on her and hopefully being able to complete the three-point play.
By the way, Clark's not on the floor right now. It's Wilson, Jackie Young, Wilson again going to the line after her make through Jonquil Jones, Kelsey Plum, Kayla George, and Colson, the other guard they're playing beside Plum. So Clark is out right now, which, again, it's going to be interesting to see how throughout this game Becky Hammond works throughout her lineups with only having 8 bodies as Wilson makes the and-1.
And honestly, if you're the Aces, you got to be happy you're only down 7.
Vandersloot could make that shot, but again, she has been a lot better in these 2 games in New York than she was in Vegas. But then you still got to worry, Cage, if you're thinking about going back to Vegas for Game 5, is Vandersloot going to revert back to what we've seen a lot from her in this series? As a timeout is taken by the Liberty after the Aces get the last 2 baskets, an and one and a lay-in there by Kelsey Plum off the feed from Kayla George, and she got it through technically. Both big. She got around Jonquel Jones, and the shot got just through the fingertips there of Stewart behind her, trailing.
And that was a great adjustment there from Kelsey Plum. Last time she got 3 people up in the air, but didn't realize Jonquel Jones was right behind her, ready to swat that down. Give her credit, she switched to her right hand in mid-air, nullifying the shot blocking ability of Breanna Stewart, and finished with the right hand.
It's so hard, Cage, to judge how this game is going. Because, again, as we've talked about a lot already, and we're going to continue to talk about a lot because it's such a massive storyline and a massive part of this game is the lack of just players right now for the Las Vegas Aces and the way they're going to rotate and all of the things that I've already spoken enough about as of now. But how the stars like Young, like Plum, like Wilson do. Wilson's had a good start. Plum's had a good start. Plum was easily the best ace in game 3. And I could go as far as to say, Cage, I don't know how much of a fan you were of her game in game 3. She was basically the only ace that showed up.
Pretty much, at least on the offensive side of the floor, yeah.
So they really need all 3 of those players. And Alicia Clark, the 6th woman of the year, obviously also really could use a good game. But still, I think Young, Wilson, and Plum all need to have 20 plus if the Aces expect to win this game. And I mean 20 plus, and most likely into the plus if they want to win this game. Because I don't know what Kayla George and Kirsten Bell and Colson are going to bring to the offense. That Colson's already got to lay in. She made a 3 after the shot clock went. We haven't basically seen any of Bell. Bell came in for, 1 free throw and got subbed right back out. Kayla George has been a really good passer from the perimeter. She hasn't really played inside the post as of yet. But, I don't know what they offer on the offensive end because we haven't seen it. They don't really play. And obviously, in fairness to a great coach, and you and I can't say enough good things about Becky Hammond. At least I know I can't. I'm a big fan of Becky Hammond as a coach.
But this is going to be your toughest test.
It is for Becky Hammond and the other stars of this team. By the way, to mention, Chelsea Gray, this is her first career game missed of her WNBA career, which is amazing to think.
Mm-hmm.
But again, also, sucky to think that her first ever missed game is in the WNBA Finals in some massive games for her team. Unlucky for sure.
Absolutely. You have to give this Aces team a lot of credit, especially on the defensive end, even though that shot from Laney went down. They've been competing on the defensive end and making things difficult, at least in the second quarter.
And Wilson couldn't get that one to go. Rebounded by Jonquel Jones. Surprised they didn't call that bump there by Wilson. I'm happy they didn't, as Wilson steals the ball in transition from Inescu's pass for Jonquel Jones. Horrible transition defense there by the Liberty. They give away the rebound as well. So offensively rebounded by Plum. Back to George. 4-3. It's good for Kayla George. She missed the lay-in after some horrible transition defense by the Liberty, in my opinion. Again, under Vandersloot. Ooh, I didn't like that pass at all, Cage. I think you know why. As that might be called, and it's going to be a block on Sydney Colson. And I'm not sure, Cage. I might need to see another replay of that one if Colson is the problem on that one, as George took that one right over Vandersloot and got it to go. That's her first make of the game. Her first make, I think, of this series.
And it's just like...
And it is her first make of the series.
And I think for the Liberty, they are not playing smart at all.
I don't disagree with you there. Is Laney Vandersloot back to Benijah Laney. 4-3, no good. And rebound. Wait, that one in?
Yeah, it did.
I thought that did. Okay. Barely my eyes are playing tricks on me, Cage. As the other way it goes. Young to Wilson. Back for Young. For Clark, for George again. That ball got muscled well over the net. That one was nowhere near it. That time she got guarded by Jonquel Jones, who's now in for 3. That one, no good. Rebounded by George. George away for Young. Almost given away there. Nice spin by Jackie Young. Young thought about shooting it. Doesn't. Gives it off to Plum. Plum trying to get through the hedge. Does. Jackie Young seeped into the corner, wide open, at least for the second. That shot doesn't go, and Young, again, kind of slow to get up. George again for 3, no good, and rebounded there by the Liberty. By the way, that was only a 2. It wasn't even a 3, I don't think. Or can I count, Cage? No, I don't think I can count. I think it was 25-21, so it was only a 2 for Benijah Laney. It wasn't even a 3, as Jonquel Jones couldn't get it through for Alicia Clark. Neither team has a make in the last about minute and a half or so. Nice pass, Kayla George. That's too easy. Again, in transition. The Liberty, lazy in transition. How does that happen, Cage?
Effort.
Like, I don't get it. How does that happen? In transition, in Game 4 of the WNBA Finals, in a game you need to win, they're without 2 starters.
And I think that's the issue.
You think they're overlooking it?
They're overlooking it. They're not playing with the same effort and intensity like they did in Game 3, because we never saw any of that in Game 3.
And that is Jonquel Jones getting the foul there as A'ja Wilson tried to rebound that ball. You could have called it, honestly, either on Jonquel Jones or Vandersloot, who were right there, but they gave it to Jonquel Jones. That's her second foul. She'll check out. So in is a reserve that didn't get a whole lot of game time until later in the series, and then she's kind of moved her way up in the rotation. There is Stephanie Dolson as Plum. Trying to work down on Vandersloot. Nice spin. Gonna have to fire it, and it is no good, but gets the foul on Vandersloot. I thought she made that for a sec, Cage. I thought she made it through the contact, which would have been an amazing make there for Kelsey Plum, who I will mention didn't get a break until the minute and a half mark of the fourth quarter. I also want to mention this, Cage, and I'm kind of confused by this. Maybe it's because of not being dressed in the lineup, because maybe you're only allowed 10 dressed players, but Candace Parker, as Plum misses the first free throw, that's uncharacteristic there of Kelsey Plum. Candace Parker's in street clothes, while Gray and Stokes are in Aces apparel. So I'm kind of surprised by that, as Plum makes number 2 to go 1 for 2 from the line. 3-point lead now for the Liberty in this second quarter. A second quarter, but that's been offensively dominated by the Aces. Stewart, good. That pass. That's Wilson trying to find a pass into the corner now for Plum. Plum driving out for Young. Clark also going to take a drive on Thornton, who came in for it. Looks another sub they made as Young floats it up and it rattles in. They've had a couple of those, Kajan, where they've rattled them in, where they've kind of taken a couple bounces off the rim and found their way into the hole.
They really have, and Stewart's 3
Ooh, my
does
goodness.
not fall.
Ooh. And that's got to be a make there, Cage. She was wide open. She could have set her feet, because George, who technically was the defender, didn't even know she was the defender until well too late. And that's another lay-in for A'ja Wilson, as now up the floor will come Courtney Vandersloot. 9 points for A'ja Wilson with 7 rebounds as well. My goodness.
And we've been talking about how this game could have very well pulled. The Liberty could have very well pulled away after that first quarter.
They haven't. Big second quarter by this Aces team. Wide open Dolson for 2, and it's good. What a make. There has to be a confidence builder for Stephanie Dolson, who again is a reserve player, has kind of worked her minutes up in this series, and that's a great make for her. Is George for Wilson. Wilson step back, thought about pulling it, doesn't through Dolson. Now Jackie Young's going to find some space here through an SQ. Young trying to get around. In for Wilson. Wilson's going to have to fire it regardless. No good. And rebounded by Vandersloot. Inescu trying to get through. Off for Vandersloot. Nice pass in for Dolson. Fires it off balance, and the whistle goes.
Honestly, looking at it, it looks like she did get shoved. She kind of sold it well, but
I'm just gonna plead the fifth, Cage, before I start cussing up a storm, because they did the thing, Cage, that I can't even say I hate it. I detest it. It makes my blood boil.
before you go off on it, I think I know what you mean. Wait till the ball is missing, then they call the foul.
If you hold the whistle, you're wrong. I do not care if the call ends up being right. If you hesitate, you're wrong. Every time, Cage. Every time. If you have to think about it, you're wrong. Either way, you're wrong. Nothing aggravates me more than a late whistle. Because Because I agree, Cage. I thought it was a foul. But I thought it was a foul when she put the ball up at the rim, not after Alicia Clark caught it, turned to go, and then the whistle goes. How'd it get that far?
What are we doing?
Like, again, I hate talking referees. I can't say it enough, and I know I've talked quite a bit of referees throughout this thing, and I hate that that's kind of been a narrative by me throughout this series. I do. I hate it. But as you mentioned, these referees have normally let them go. Normally have set a tone of, we're going to let them play tonight, which is their prerogative. Every set of referees is different, and that's in every sport.
Yep.
But don't blow the whistle late. Either blow it when you see the foul or choke on the whistle. I don't care which. But don't wait and then go, that probably was a foul, and then blow your whistle while the ball's going the other way.
And then when people react to the call negatively, on top of that, you compound the issue by calling an attack.
Yeah, you caused the problem, Cage. Oh, don't get me started. You caused the problem, and then you give the coach a tech because you messed up. You waited. Like, I can tell you, Cage, I could see my kid get hit in the face with an elbow, start bleeding, and I would be upset. But I would be more angry if my team was on defense, a 50-50 call happens in the post, my team rebounds it, goes to pass it, and then they blow the whistle. Cage, you would not see me run to the end of the bench faster. I would probably hop in the air like I'm the Energizer Bunny, run down the bench, and try to find a big enough corner to scream into.
What is Stephen A. Smith wearing, by the way?
Well, we've seen Don Staley, and Stephen A. with the backwards hat. Colin Cowherd talking about guys with backwards hats aren't his quarterback. Apparently, Stephen A. Smith ain't his top broadcaster. Didn't know Colin Cowherd was having a problem there with my boy Stephen A. With our boy Stephen A.
Hustler Stephen A. Smith.
God, that's almost as embarrassing when he was trying to hit pads.
What's more embarrassing, that Alfred or that first pitch at the Yankees game?
No, kid. It was him hitting pads. Him hitting pads was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Him hitting a guy in the thigh with a pad was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And now, Cage, again, I don't hit pads. I don't box. I don't do MMA. I watch them both. I understand them both. I can do some techniques of either. Oh my God! Interrupt myself, Spencer. Shut up. Kayla George, a beautiful seam pass to Kelsey Plum. And Kajan, how is this game 31-30 with the Liberty only up by 1? 22 points in the paint for the Aces.
One team,
Ionescu took that
one
one from Queens. It's no good.
one team is playing with more urgency. The other is just playing complacent and playing like they're gonna
Doo-doo.
coast their way to this victory.
Kayla George, no good. Wide open shot. They let her shoot that one. No good. Rebounded by Brianna Stewart. Stewart up. No good. How did Stewart miss that? And now there's two Aces players on the ground as they collide. I think it's Clark and Jackie Young. Both up, both good, it looks like. Plum floats it. No good. And we'll go the other way. I can't believe Stewart missed that layup, Cage. Very uncharacteristic of the reigning MVP. Ionescu into
And
the post there for Laney. Out for Thornton. It's good.
And honestly, I did not like that possession at all. Laney basically had a wide open layup. I know Thornton made that three, but you're really underneath the basket. Like if that three did not go down, that would have been a terrible position for me. That still is.
Young shoots it off the under. Doesn't get it to go. Stewart quickly up the floor for Thornton, and they're going to call it a charge. I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but it looked like a charge signal to me. And I'll be honest here, Cage, that's probably a charge. I think I'm with that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree, Cage?
It's a bang bang call.
But
either way.
I personally think that's probably a charge. I normally do go charge more than block, though, in fairness. But regardless, so that one's a block. I thought Young should set and try to get the block on before she passed it. And I can't remember if I think it was Stewart who was driving down the floor. Because I didn't think Stewart was in control and could stop. So I thought if Young planted, she was going to get drilled and get it anyway. George from about shot that one from Yankee Stadium. It's no good.
And Liberty
wide open. That's too easy there by the Aces. And they're kind of, now it's 7, Cage. That's 2 straight 3-point makes there for the Liberty. Young for Clark. And they're going to call an illegal screen against George. Now they're turnover by the Aces. Again, just lit. Cage, maybe I'm getting a little more upset than I should be, Cage. And that probably is true. Because, again, I don't watch sports a lot anymore. I'll be completely honest, because I get aggravated, because I get frustrated by watching teams play. Yeah. But how do the Liberty have so many advantages, and they're only up by 7? And I understand it's, effort and this, that, and the other, but how is that the answer? It's basically what I'll say, as another make there by Jonquil Jones. Plum from half court, well short. And now a 8-0 run at the end of the second quarter will send them up by 9 at half, 39-30.
And
still, go ahead.
And I know the Aces played an incredible second quarter.
They did. I think they won it in the end. I'll quickly check. But they did just 17-16. Go ahead.
That was a poor close to the quarter.
It definitely was.
And it just took away almost all the goodwill that was created from what they did well in that second quarter. They almost had a chance to take the lead, to take back the lead at one point. Instead, it was the Aces, it was the Liberty that closed out the half on an 8-0 run. So in that sort of sense, it's encouraging. But yeah, like with all that, I see what you're saying, Spencer. With all that talent, all those advantages, this should not be a game in which it's literally a single-digit game.
Cajun, I'll put it this way, and I genuinely mean this. If I was the coach of the New York Liberty, if I was Sandy Brundello or an assistant on the staff going into this halftime, I would be irate. How is this game not out of reach already? This game should be done. We should be already thinking about Game 5 right now. How have we played 20 minutes against 3 players. And again, and that sounds disrespectful, but as the opposing coach, you normally are kind of disrespectful to your opponent. So I'll continue on this thought process. How do they have 2 starters out? How do they have 8 players total tonight, and we're up by 9.5? We were as close as 1 point moments ago. How does that happen? That is unacceptable. I do not care we're winning. This game should be 20-30 already. This game should be buried. And that it's not. The third quarter better be a hot start for the Liberty.
Because if it isn't,
you got to be worried. Because, Kate, this is, I'm going to say this because they haven't been able to win in Las Vegas in this series. This is not the performance you want going into a Game 5, even if they win. Right now, if this game were to stay this course, this is not the performance you want going into a Game 5 in a place you haven't been able to win.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
I think I'm telling StatCage before you take it away from me, take away the talking stick. 22-8 were the points in the paint for the Las Vegas Aces over the Liberty. You and I have spoken to nauseam about how Liberty gotta get established inside. They have Jonquel Jones and Breonna Stewart. They have to get established inside. They haven't again tonight. That's 3 out of 4 games. They have not been established on the inside part of the paint for 4 quarters.
And the only reason why they're getting away with it is because the Aces.
Because Chelsea Gray's hurt, and they only run a 6-player rotation, and 2 of the 6 are gone. That's why.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I'm still steaming, Cage. This is why I can't watch sports. Again, and I didn't even do this to the World Cup, surprisingly, because Canada, we only basically commented Canada wins, and even though they played Spain. But I guess because I was cheering for Canada, I wasn't watching it as kind of bird's eye view that I normally do. Because I cheer for Canada when they suck at sports like basketball, soccer. I cheer for Canada at the World Juniors, unless there's attack players where I'm from. My local OHL team back home, I don't cheer for Canada because I prefer teams that are lucky to be there, like Latvia, like Belarus when they were there, Germany. I cheer for the underdogs basically because I like it when Denmark is there and they win a game against Sweden or something. I think that's great. I think it makes for great television. But anyway, just so mad. And Cage, I gotta say this again. Now, something I've been kind of curious about, especially because Stephen A's there at the Barclays Center, okay, is the panels have been for the pregame show, the halftime show, and the postgame show for these games in the WNBA Finals have been full girl crews. 3 or 4 panelists have all been girls. And I am happy that they are well represented in the WNBA. That's not what I'm saying. But wouldn't it be nice if somebody like Stephen A was in the panel to give it, I'll say, legitimacy to the more broader audience? Because again, we're still trying to expand the game.
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't it be nice if you had somebody like Stephen A, and I'm not going to say Max Kellerman, but people like of that ilk? Mad Dog Russo, even though I don't like him personally. Maybe JJ Redick. I think JJ Redick would be perfect. Former NBA player, has worked for ESPN, has some great takes. Obviously has some bad ones like everybody else does, but have some legitimacy to the broadcast. You know what I mean? For the more casual audience. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say that, before we go and take our break at halftime, is they have Fat Joe, rapper Fat Joe, on the panel.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Fat Joe doesn't know anything about basketball. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, wouldn't it be better if it was JJ Redick? Wouldn't it be better if it was Stephen A. Smith? Wouldn't it be better if it was somebody media trained to was a journalist, was an analyst of the game. Say it was, for example, Paul Jones of the Toronto Raptors, Mark Jones, his brother, who does I believe, ESPN broadcasts of the NBA. And honestly, Cage, I can't believe I didn't think about this. Invite Shaq or Charles Barkley or Kenny Smith or even Ernie Johnson from the Turner Broadcasting crew.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they'd make the jump because I know this is not a Turner Broadcasting, a TNT broadcast, but still, I would have loved to have seen somebody that a casual who does not watch the WNBA would know.
Mike Breen.
Who, sorry?
Mike Breen.
Mike Breen. Exactly. Somebody that, somebody that does not watch this sport would know. That they would be like, hey, I know who that is. Because that's what halftime shows me. Why do you think Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, and Arnie Johnson work? It's because even though some people wouldn't know who Kenny Smith is from his playing career, you know who they are. Yeah. They pop up on your television. If you know anything about sports, you know who they are. Especially Shaq. Barkley, a little bit less. Kenny, a lot less. But you know who Shaquille O'Neal is.
No, I think you know who Charles Barkley is based off of how funny he is.
I agree, but you and I are basketball fans. You and I know the show. I think from a farther out audience of more pop culture, you know who Shaq is. More than Barkley and definitely more than Kenny Smith. For the casual, for the person who does not watch it as a religion or as watches it, consistently.
Yeah.
Because, imagine, I genuinely mean this, imagine JJ Redick. Or, was during the, even not necessarily the broadcast, but was doing the halftime show, or doing the pregame show. And you ask him a question, and he explains it, like a way that I know he can, is what I'll say. Because, again, I think a lot of JJ Redick. I think he's very smart. I think a lot of his takes make sense. Even though I really don't like when athletes become analysts, because I don't think they should be. Most of them, not all of them. There are exceptions, but then you've got, was it Ryan Collins, former net,
Ryan
who shouldn't be on television? Yeah, Ryan shouldn't be on television.
Oh, there's one that's even worse.
Perkins?
The great Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah, but again, he has his own show, for Christ's sake. But regardless, before we go on a tangent about media, God. I would have loved for the casuals to have somebody, and honestly, Cage, it could have been a woman. Like, I'd say, in all honesty, Cage, if Las Vegas wasn't in the finals, have Becky Hammon do the halftime show.
I was going to say somebody else.
What?
Doris Burke.
Absolutely. She's just moved into the commentary booth, from my understanding, with ESPN. She moved into the color spot.
Yep.
Jeff or Stan Van Gundy. I know Jeff just got hired after being laid off by ESPN, just got hired by the Celtics to be a senior consultant. Somebody like that. Somebody from that ilk. Because imagine you had somebody like, say, Jeff, who's done broadcasts for God knows how, since the 90s, since the early 90s when he left the Knicks. So 20 years or so with ESPN. Being able, to big up everybody. Because obviously they wouldn't talk about the negatives. You'd make JJ or, the person with the most reputation talk about the positives and just gush about Ionescu shooting the ball from Queens, from Staten Island, from Rhode Island.
Yeah.
You talk about how John Paul Jones dominating in the post, like she should. That's what you do. Because again, you want, as we talked about during a Polar Opposites episode when we talked about expansion of the WNBA, you're trying to attract fans. Because people that watch it regardless are going to watch it regardless. You want the casual to be interested. How do you make them interested? You put people they know and people they like in the broadcast to highlight the positives of what they're doing. That'll keep them hooked. But Before we tangent on for the rest of the halftime, we will take a little break. We'll be back with the third quarter between the Aces and the Liberty. New York Liberty up 39-30 leaders going into the second half as you listen to this here on the Outrage